Hi and welcome to episode number 2 of MTV, Monsta TV. Thanks for joining us again. Today we're going to talk about our colour wash range, and it's a new range that we've released recently. We've been fired with many questions from the public on this one, and lots of great feedback as well from those that have used it. But I thought I'd just explain what colour wash is, because there seems to be a little bit of misunderstanding out in the market on what colour washes are. So prior to this range being brought out by us, we found there were a lot of people that wanted to achieve that Scandinavian look, which is where the colour wash has actually been inspired by, and they have diluted paints. So they go and buy a white paint from their paint store, they add water to it, mix it up to sort of give it that washed, diluted effect, and what ends up happening is they paint it out, they then got to sand it to get the effect. And any of you that know that if you get a good quality paint, you add water to it, you actually really start to reduce the qualities of the paint. And that impacts how long the paint will last, its adhesion, and its final appearance. So our lab, we've got a couple clever guys in there. We developed the colour wash range where it's ready to use. There's no adding water. It gives you that effect, and the Scandinavian effect, which is becoming really popular in Australia at the moment, but we're seeing it globally, but particularly here. It's very popular for use over timber, brickwork, renders, where you get that appearance where you can still see the base behind it, but you get that nice effect. So you could describe it maybe like a bit of a stain, but really popular at the moment, and multiple of colours that we've brought to the market. We've got 8 in our range at this point in time. So I thought the best thing for us to start with, I'm not going to show you how traditional paint is diluted, let's show you the colour wash range and how it works. So we're going to start with our white, our colour wash white. So piece of timber like so, and like all good DIYs or renovators, look after my hands, and this has actually given me some really bad memories of the doctor's appointment I had with my prostate test, but anyway, I won't go there. So here's the colour wash white, and so we're going to bring this out, and even a left-handed hack like me, show how when I brush that out, you work it into the surface, and you'll see that unlike a real opaque, high opacity paint, you'll start to see when this dries through, and we'll let it just sit on the side, as you work that into the surface, you get that grain effect that still comes through from the timber behind. Okay, and if I had diluted this paint, what would have happened is I'd have a lot of water and wash marks, but I can still feel the flow. You might be able to see the way I'm working that into the surface. It still gives you that work of a paint that's full of body, and nice workability, nice coverage still, but you'll see as this dries, I'll start to see that grain effect through there. This paint actually is quite cost effective because one coat might do the job for you. However, I could put a second coat on there depending on how much of that base I want to show through, it'll come. So we'll just let this sit here for a little bit and dry. And while we're doing that, I'm going to stick this in water because all our products are water based, and I'm going to bring out our green. And our green is a real popular one in the Scandinavian look, and if you get the right contrast with furnishings, you'll see the way that it can give you a nice feel. You can see that grain of that timber coming through there like that. I've got to tell you, without sounding biased, these Monsta paints are really nice to work with. It's just the wood that just flows off the brush, nice and easy. But enough of the sales plug. There's you can see that grain coming through in that pine there, and if I let that dry, this goes up really nice against some greys or darker charcoal colours that you might have inside, or even against a white. But these products work, as I said before, perfect on lots of different woods and timbers, but ideally even on block work, brickwork, and some rendered surfaces. Okay, I'm going to bring our turquoise because I know it's a favourite with some of our staff. And it is a really gorgeous colour when it's out. So again, you see it feels like just a turquoise coloured paint as it's going down. But as I work that into the surface, it'll give me that washed appearance that'll come through. And this is a great colour to have inside bedrooms, kids' rooms, living areas, even entranceways. Just brightens it up, but they're not bright. You could describe them as maybe a little bit pale. I wouldn't call them dull, a bit pale coloured. But you can see the way that if you get these with the right furnishings or the right floor finishes, it just gives you a really nice contrast. And you can see this would even go really nice in a bathroom with white tiles up against it, or maybe something that might be very, very prominent in a room. It could even be a rug or a larger furnishing that would contrast quite well against this. We'll just let that turquoise dry off. And I'm going to bring in our yellow. And actually, talking about Scandinavian looks, I was in IKEA the other week and there was quite a lot of the furnishings that they started to show that were this sort of colour. Timber drawers, cupboards that go in kids' rooms, bedrooms, etc. And this is a real common Swedish type look. When I see this colour, it's not a bright yellow. It's not like an alarming or safety yellow. It's a again, that pale yellow, but even great in a baby's room. But maybe the feminine side's coming out of me a bit on this one. But it's when it dries up, you put these colours against each other in a moment, you'll see the way they show. But I don't know if you can see that through that piece there on the camera, but the grain of the timber, I can just see that coming right through. And when this dries, you'll see that pine appearance behind it, and the yellow showing through. And so I could come back and give this a second coat if I wanted to. So as you can see, these are starting to dry now. You get that colour wash effect. So that's the real popular washed look, that Scandinavian look. You can see the white, very clear with the white where you can get through the maximum grain effect from behind. But you start to see, you look at the green there, and that, I'm not sure if that's showing up from your end, but that is really a sexy colour. It's just a real nice pale green, but without being too bright or too dull. Not morose, not something you want to sort of put in a funeral parlour, but definitely want to put in your entrance and make that look really cool, or a bedroom. And I wouldn't even mind this in my office space, this one. It's just a nice feature wall potentially. But great on furnishings, and again, I could see that really having an effect on some brickwork. But you'll see what we're describing about that grain. You can see clearly that pine grain coming through. And just the mix of colours, even the yellows with the white, or with the green over that, between different walls. And our turquoise over here that's still drying. You can see that gives you a bit more of a deeper look, but even that, normally you wouldn't contrast the blue and the green together, but that pale effect next to each other is quite effective and looks great. Really important too, questions come through from people on the colour wash. So normally with painting, we say the surface preparation is so important, and we do have our prep seal in our range where we prepare the surface, but you can't use a primer sealer undercoat when you're using a colour wash range because it'll just hide the surface. So really important that when you are about to paint with these sorts of colours, give the surface a very good clean. If it's a surface where you can even give it a light damp wipe down, really important. If it's new, if it's an older surface, ensure you've got no surface dust, you've done all your preparation, your repairs done first. What's actually very effective on brickwork, if you've got repairs doing it, you're doing repairs on renders or brick, you don't really have to make it look so pretty and finished over, because that actually comes through as one of the effects, like a grain, when you're putting these colour washes over the top. But yeah, I'll show you the last four colours in the range. So I'm going to get to our baby blue, and This is a real neat blue, not too overpowering, but will still give you that effect that you're after. And again, a nice contrast against either brighter colours with it or other light colours next to it. And great in a baby's room, again in bathrooms and wet areas. And this piece of timber's got a real grainy edge on that bottom, so that shows up and it sort of highlights the differences between it. We've got a pink. Again, I'm talking about my feminine side coming out, but I actually quite like pinks and they can be very, very effective. But this can be described as a bit of a rose pink, very pale, but not dull, not dead. And this is just a renovator's dream, this type of paint, especially when you're going over old surfaces or substrates that might be aged, and to try and get old brickwork or blockwork or renders in a perfect state can take you ages and ages. And when you'll find that when you use these colour wash ranges over those sorts of surfaces, it almost highlights it like a feature where you've got a bit of render that might have been repaired, and these colour washes over the top, just enough to hide all the repair work, but highlight the texture and the base behind it. That's our pink. And I'm going to finish off with our two greys that we've got in the range. And so you can just see them side by side. Where we have our light grey. It's got a really fine, it might not show up on your screen, but it's got a really fine tinge of blue. And a lot of greys do have that blue effect at times. But this could be described sometimes like a concrete grey. And these two greys I've saved to the end because a lot of people, and I've seen this overseas in Europe, they tend to use the greys in contrast, play them off each other, so you can have a deeper grey against a lighter grey, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. And this is our darker grey. Not quite a charcoal grey, but probably more like was described often as a slate grey. And when you put this deeper grey, I quite like this one. I've saved this one. Not that I'm a dull person and boring, but I like a grey because when you run these sorts of greys against other colours, you really highlight the other colours that come to life. And I'll show you in a moment what I mean. You can see as I'm working that product in, still getting that effect when it dries out. But I can run this grey up against that blue, which has a nice contrast. I could even run the grey up against the yellow, or that pink as well. And so very, very effective in terms of a room, a feature room, whether you want it on a wall or a piece of furniture, or just a feature wall as such. Or now these paints, I've got to stress, are only for inside. They're internal only. There are no colour washes that we have at the moment in the exterior areas. And as I said before, the difference between this and diluting a paint is that when we don't make the colour wash range by diluting our Monsta paints. The way these paints are made is that every paint has what they call a titanium dioxide. It's a white powder that goes in every paint in the world, and that gives you opacity. And so we swap out the pigment, that titanium dioxide. They're getting too technical, and it still gives you the effect of having the right amount of polymer in there, which is what gives you the adhesion, the durability, the scuff resistance, the cleaning. And like all our paints, these come with all the bells and whistles. Antibacterial, they're suitable for wet areas, kitchen and bathroom areas. You could even use it for a ceiling. They are at a lower sheen type sheen, so they're not a matte. There's no gloss in these, but they can be used up against matte paints or low sheen semi-gloss paints to give you another effect, because you can use a different sheen as a great way to contrast your project. So look, whether you're doing a new home, but like I said before, these are really good renovators products. You might have seen on the Style Curator they actually had done a dog bed with it, so even for DIY projects where you're doing around the home, whether it be a cubby house, a dog bed, or you actually want to paint major walls in your homes or redo the bathrooms up, great range to consider. Please, if you've got any questions on the colour wash range, you've got our phone numbers to check us out on, or these email addresses that come up on your screen now. Please email your inquiries through. You can ring, Facebook us, email. Our Monsta Crew are ready to help your inquiry. And if you've got other colours you think that we should add to the colour wash range, we want to hear about them. If you've seen it, and we'd love to see your projects come back to us and show us how you've used the colour wash range. Thanks for joining us on this episode. We'll see you next week.